next speaker is famous at these Stay-Mates technology conferences for being kind of controversial. The last time he was here, he started a fist fight. No, I'm just kidding. But the last time he was here, people got kind of worked up about something that was really fun. So I think you're really going to enjoy Matt Herzberger. Please give him a warm up.
Okay, so I'm going to start out. The name of my thing, my presentation, Press Release 2.0, News Releases in the Social Media Era. This is a presentation I've done a couple times before, and I keep rewriting it, pretty much starting from scratch every time I do it. The first time I did it, I realized that I used way too many buzzwords, and it was just like buzzword bingo all over the place. So I decided I needed to get back to something that was really useful and that really meant something to people and you could actually use what I'm talking about. So this is kind of a token example of a press release. It's pretty basic. It's got a headline, the subline, usually say where you're at, what the date is, and then just bunch of paragraphs, and then you make the contact information at the bottom. So that's kind of the old school way of doing that, and that's an old schoolhouse. So yeah, sorry. All right. So this is kind of I took this as a project. I just kind of looked at what we had as a news presence, and I was like, this is really pathetic. And so this is where we kind of started out here on the right, and I assume that this is probably kind of close to what a lot of institutions, lots of companies, this is what they have for their press room or their newsroom. It's a pretty basic site, and they've got headline, a little bit of text, maybe a picture at best. Our CMS that we were using at the time was awesome because you could only put out pictures in one size, and no ifs, ands, or buts, it had to be that size. So nice that it's all flexible and everything like that. And it was just really, really boring to work within the system. And we did have RSS, so great. At least one good thing comes out of it. There really wasn't any multimedia. It was just at most we had 2 pictures with captions under it. And again, I think a lot of people, they're cheering for me. You hear that? All right. So what I kind of did was I wanted to have some kind of goals. What do I want to accomplish? It's not just I want to make a news site and use a blogging platform to do it. I need to have a reason and need to have at least some goals that in the end I can say, hey, I did them. So my goals from the beginning were to migrate all my old posts. Luckily I had RSS for my old site as well, so I could just take and integrate in all my old posts. I wanted to move it to a blogging platform because for me, news releases are pretty close to blog posts for all intents. And there's even the added ability that if you want to do it, you can open up comments, which I did do. And I'll talk a little bit about that because there were some people that were kind of iffy on me doing it. But I'm kind of hard-headed when I want to do something, and one way or another, I'm going to do it. So, I want to mention again the ability to add multimedia. This idea of social media press release that I'll keep touching on. Part of it comes, it's changing up the way that you sort of structure it, but it's also kicking it up a notch and really adding some fun stuff to it. Make it a little bit easier to digest. Again, we just had, a headline, a subhead, and then a bunch of, paragraphs with information. It's kind of boring. It's really not that easy to get to. A little bit easier social media linkage, hooking it up on sites like Dig, Delicious, all that stuff. Just make it a little bit easier. The last thing that I tried to accomplish was with our last CMS, our writers had a really hard time working with it. It really didn't lend itself to being editable. There was these fields down at the bottom for kind of selection of categories, and it was in this coded language that, I'm sure the developer made perfect sense to him, but to anybody else, they had no idea what the hell they meant. And they're like, well, I think if you select this one, it means it goes to this site, and this one, I don't know what that one means, but we usually just select it because we do. And to interrupt myself, if you guys have questions, just shout them out while I'm going. You don't need to wait until the end or anything. So anyways, yeah. Any questions then, since I'm asking? Okay, cool. So what did I do? I had to do a little bit of research to figure out where I was going, what I wanted to do. So I found some good examples. I went to really, really good news sites that I think are wonderful. like the New York Times. It's awesome. I mean, it functions well, it's beautiful, it's laid out well. A pretty great example. There's also some great EDU examples that I'll touch on a little bit. Man, I am rocking. Do you hear this? Okay. So anyways, so there's a lot of nice higher education examples also that you can look at and use, and I'll be mention those a little bit later. And really, the way that I kind of tell people in my office now is I don't consider myself like the guy that just, does HTML all day long, and I dot I's, cross T's, all those little text type changes. I tell people in my office that I make tools to make your job easier. That's what I kind of see myself in being a web person. I just make your job easier when it comes to what you need to do. So I had a long talk with my writers, and I said, what's your problem with where we're at right now? Where would you like to go? How do you think we can do that? And, they might not have been able to put into the exact words what they were wanting, but I kind of listened, and I was like, okay, cool. I think we can, work together and make this work. Excuse me. So I wanted to come up with a solid layout of how I could do this site, because again, I was using a blogging platform, WordPress. Again, WordPress, not a movable type like Carlin said. WordPress rocks. I think they're a great piece of software, so that's who I'm giving my nod to. Anyways, so I wanted to come up with a solid layout, and now there are tons and tons and tons of like news themes for WordPress, but when I was looking to do this project, there really weren't any. And I was at a conference last year at High Web Dev, and Concordia University did this presentation called Using WordPress as a CMS, or something to that extent. And they had this great theme that they developed specifically to use WordPress as a news site. And I'm like, awesome, this is what I want to do. So I took their theme and I really, really heavily modded it. So it really looked barely anything like what they'd originally done, but it had some of the structure. The other thing, around when I was starting this project, it was kind of this big, again, there's a lot of buzzwords thrown around out there by a lot of people, but there was these things that were getting popular called social media press releases. And so I did a little bit of research into them. If you want to learn more about them, there's socialmediarelease.org is the website to look into. They give me lots of different names. There's social media press release, social media news release, multimedia news release. They all mean the same thing for all intents. So this is kind of the company that designed this was Shift Communications. There's a guy there, and he came up with this. He wrote this long blog post called Dire Press Releases Die, 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 I believe was the name of it. Pretty much just showing his disgust for what this old school, what most marketers, communicators, writers, whatnot, that's how they were taught. This is the form you do it in, and that's how you do it. But, he got to where, there's all these amazing communication tools now and all these ways you can do things differently on the web. Why are we still writing the same old way? So there's this template here. And don't get so much caught up in the idea that you have to follow this exact format. This is just kind of a general idea how you can do it. A lot of times I've told people about this, and if you just Google for social media press release, this PDF document will come up as the first thing with this template. But the thing to kind of think about is it's just changing it up a little bit. One of the things that they've done is they just try and make it a little bit easier to get at the stuff that you really want to get out of a press release. So across the top here, they've got contact information. Is the very first thing on there. And then they've still got, the same old school headline and subhead. But what they've done in the next part is they put bullet points. They got, maybe 3 or 4 bullet points that say this is the meat of this story. So rather than having to read all those paragraphs, you can go to the very top and you say, boom, boom, boom. Does any of this interest me? Yes, no? It's that making things really easily scannable on the web. That's the way that people digest. If most of us, when we read, all the studies will pretty much show that you only have so much time to make an impression on a person. So this is just making that a little bit easier with your news presence. And so these right here, and I'll touch on these a little bit more, but this is a link to Delicious, and this is an RSS feed. Again, just make it a little bit easier for that person to make the kind of affirmative step and follow, all your releases in the long run. There's some photo and graphic and video files that can hypothetically be here, and I'm going to be touching on these, so I'll keep going and get back to it. So again, the thing we're trying to do here is make news sexy. Is that, can we do that? I don't know, probably not. It's a news release. You're not going to make it that exciting. But you can do some steps that can make yours get a little bit more impressions and that people actually want to look at, see, and read. So one of the things that's really important in this whole process, and I know you've heard about RSS all the time, and some of you either understand it or you don't. When it comes down to it in the long term of internet, RSS is really just plumbing. RSS is not going to be the way that most people really consume their information, or they might already be today consuming RSS, but they have no idea. Like if you have an iGoogle homepage or NetVibes or something like that, you might not actually know it, but you're consuming RSS. That's not a picture of me, by the way. I just wanted to add that. Anyways, so one of the problems that I kind of came up to when I was doing this project, I love the people in my office, but I also pick on them every single time I present. They're just I use them as my example, and luckily they don't come to any of the same conferences as me, so they don't tend to hear about it. What I did with the writers is I just came out with kind of a base set of things. And again, I'm not the one putting in all this content over the long run, so I'm creating tools to help make their jobs easier. They aren't all necessarily doing it what I would consider the most stellar way and the most ideal ways of doing everything it's doing, but I just wanted to put it out there and let it play. And see what they did. And then what I do is every couple of weeks we kind of have a powwow, and I'm like, all right, so what have you noticed? What have you seen on the site lately? We kind of talk about it. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I noticed you guys have been doing that for the last couple of weeks. Well, here's how to correct that. And I'll fix all the old ones for them. So we kind of have this dialogue going on of how to make it easier for them, what they don't understand or what they want to see. So comments, that's one of the things on our news releases now. I've left the comments fully open on our site. And there hasn't been any miraculous comments, as of thus far. A lot of them have been, a professor wins an award or gets a grant or something like that, and, his friends, family, or whatnot will be like, great job, professor, blah, 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 whatever. And that's been a lot of it. But also, we've had a couple of cool things where we had a press release, and somebody from some random corporation wrote in and was like, wow, that's really similar to this project or product that our company is looking to get involved in. I'd love to talk more to Dr. Such and Such. Again, you made the ability for them to engage in this conversation. When you were just pushing out things, this was one way, and now because you have comments, it's a two-way, read, write, or whatever you want to call the current kind of incarnation of what's going on with the web. By enabling comments, you've really made it so that they can be involved in the conversation. And there can be good things, and I'm always looking more excited. But I think a lot of people, especially people that work at corporations and stuff like that, they're scared that they can have a voice and that they can actually say, hey, I agree with that, or hey, I don't agree with that. So I have to put these big buttons, and on a single post, I'll probably say 3 or 4 different times, comment. You can comment. Hey, in case I didn't tell you, you can comment. I mean, I want to make it big and blinky with a hammer to hit them and tell them, you can be engaged in this conversation. It's okay, we're not going to bite you probably. So consistency is one of the things that I've kind of had some problems with. Some people will post things directly from a Word document that will do all this funky formatting type stuff, and there is a thing that you can paste from Word and it will fix that problem, but a lot of times they don't do it. So I'm a little bit anal, and I kind of have to do some babysitting and follow back over what they're doing, but I'm okay with that because they're at least going with me and trying out this kind of new adventure. One of the other biggest problems is getting the multimedia stuff. I work in the marketing and communications office, so I don't have day-to-day contact with kids. I don't work in a department. I don't work in the admissions office. I work kind of, in my own little island. And we don't hear about a lot of the cool stuff. We hear about it 2 days after it happened. And you're sitting there and you're like, oh, they had 500 kids do this amazing thing where they build a robot that, breathe fire or something like that. And it's like, I totally would have been there in 2 seconds, taking pictures, video, whatever it is you wanted me to do. But they tell me after it. And they're like, could you write a press release about this? And I'm like, come on. I could have made an awesome press release with video, not just saying, it blew fire or whatever, whatever the case may be. So I have a lot of problems doing that because also I'm really busy all the time, and it might be the case that I can't always just go and run and take pictures or do video, but nobody really ever tells me, so I can't really do it anyways. All right, so one of the things I want to talk about is the measurement of how you can kind of track this, where you can do it. Locally, you can find like the newspapers, the message boards, word of mouth, or industry journals, and then there's different tools that can kind of help you out. I mean, there's little bits that I'll hit on during this that can't be presentations in and to themselves that could last hours. So I'm just going to real quick run over some of this, but there's some tools that you can use. There's some pay ones, there's some free ones, and if you decide to go down this route of really getting into news, and in my office we happen to have a PR or media person who, he's the one that really is the hands-on, face-to-face with journalists and things of that nature. But we have a tool called Focus. It's like, to me, I don't see the value in it, but they love it. It's this big, huge behemoth, like $100,000 a year thing, and I'm like, you could just pay me that much money, and I would sit around and just go look for news clips all day long. I'd even create the reports that this thing does. Pay me $90,000. There you go. You save $10,000 by me being your little errand boy. Anyways, so there's a couple others. There's Custom Scoop, which is another one I've kind of researched recently, and Tracker. The ones that I'm really into are free tools. Free tools for me are always cool. And one of the ones that's just a real basic one that everybody's probably heard of, but it does a great job of tracking everything that's said about you, is Google Alerts. And I think the power in that is that it kind of harnesses the Google engine. Google has got more stuff indexed than anything else on the web, so more than likely if something's said about you, Google's going to find it pretty quick. And just recently, it used to be that you could only subscribe to Google Alerts via email, but 3 or 4 days ago, they made it so you can also subscribe to Google Alerts via RSS. And I'm going to hit and push on RSS a little bit later because it's really helpful with this stuff. Technorati is another one that you can use. It's what it originally kind of came out is like Google for blogs. So it was really, really timely, whereas Google, just kind of ran big spider indexes of the whole internet. Technorati, what you would, in kind of the old days, I'll call them, like 2 years ago, because that's kind of how things are for me. Like old school is like, seriously, that was 5 weeks ago. I get my boss all the time sends me these emails telling me about like, hey man, have you heard about this thing called Twitter? And I'm like, wow, now I know it's kind of lame because you've heard of it. Anyways, I'm just kidding. Again, I said I'd pick out my coworkers, but you don't have to tell them. So anyways, Technorati is a great tool to use. It's been one of the kind of long time, if you're really into keeping up on blog type stuff, it's kind of fallen apart a little bit, but it's still really helpful to use. Another great one is Blog Pulse, and what's kind of neat about that is you can put in search terms for, let's say, the name of your school or whatever. You can put in, I think, 3 terms at a time. And what it'll do is it'll graphically represent, like, trending. So it'll do over the course of, like, a year across the bottom, and then you'll see these lines, there might be a huge peak in there, and that might be the day, you won the Final Four or something like that. You would see a huge peak in your school. And so, that's kind of a different way of looking at it. Another one is called Compete. And what Compete does is it will, let me see. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay, Compete, you take pretty much the URL of yourself and you compare it to your competitors, and then you can track the kind of traffic that comes in on your domain. So it's kind of a cool way to go back. And delicious. So, I've kind of done this project, and this is my ongoing kind of child that I'm seeing through, I guess I'll call it adolescence right now. It's not quite, a grown up, and I'm still working all the time with writers and stuff like that. And again, I said that I have these little powwow meetings with the writers every once in a while, and I can pretty much tell when I'm going to get the next question. I'm like, oh, it's about time for that next question. I know half the time what they're going to ask before they ask me it. Because I kind of know, they get in there and they're getting a little dangerous. They're like, oh, I've been on this tool for a couple weeks now. And they start poking and prodding, and they start to notice things. And I love that because it shows that they're excited and they're engaged in the experience, but yet I didn't overload them from the beginning. So they feel like, they're the studs. They're the ones figuring this stuff out. So again, future, the video, photo, audio type stuff is one of the things that's been so hard for me to get going. Just because I don't have the time to do it. And, what would probably make this easier for me would be to get a student worker because, again, with all this stuff, and I know a lot of the presentations thus far have been about social media and whatever other words you want to throw at, again, kind of the way that the web's going, but you need your communications to be authentic and genuine. And, someone from my office, I project a different, I guess, kind of tone than most other people in my office do. So I kind of get that, but, when I ask somebody from my office to write something, they're writing, I'm not meaning to offend anyone by this, but they're writing marketing fluff. And, that's what they're putting out. And so what I would probably do is I would get a student worker because they can talk, they know the lingo, whatever. But, they know how to portray other students. They're the perfect person when, again, a lot of you, have been talking about social media. When you want to learn about it, go to it. You're trying, we're the best market to be engaged in social media because everybody that we deal with on a daily basis are exactly the demographic that use social media. So they're great to be your teacher. It's kind of hard, I know, as probably like a director or manager type person to say, hey, student worker that I pay $6 an hour, could you tell me about this Facebook stuff? But, they would be one of the best teachers if you would just sit down and work with them. They're really knowledgeable. So again, student workers, great to use. One of the things that I've really got working on now is I've got all this content, and I don't want to just have it, on my site, that's it. I'm working to get this information out there, and I've got this great tool, RSS. And I can start to aggregate that throughout my site. I can put it all over the place, embed it in different parts of my site. Like the other day, I had somebody from our development office come to me, and they're like, Matt, we need to start putting up like these little stories about all the donors that we have. And I'm like, on our development site. I'm like, well, we do that on our news site every single day. And they're like, yeah, but we should write them, we should put them on our giving site. I'm like, okay, we have RSS. How about I just make it do that automatically? And they're like, you can do that? We don't have to post it twice? And I was like, yeah, we can do that. It's really not a big deal. And they're like, awesome, because it's cutting a little bit more work, shaving a little bit more work off their time because they don't want to be in the website any more than they have to, anyways. Let me see. I can go back. I totally meant to play this video earlier, and I'm sorry I did not. And again, I said I was going to touch on social media press releases, and the forward kind of format that I have with this presentation, most of what I talked about was those. So I'm going to play this video that kind of explains what is helpful about a social media press release, and there's a little bit of a sales pitch at the end, which I'm going to cut because we don't need a sales pitch from some company that, they all do it so well. Here's a little quick video that you can watch it all. What's up?
Yeah,
where is this?
right there. The box screen button.
Okay, start. I'm sorry, this is pathetic. Usually.
facts, and quotes, as well as multimedia content that allows them to enhance their blog post. In addition to this, it also provides them a platform on which they can actually enter into a dialogue with that organisation, and also things like RSS feeds that allows them to then share that content with others. The concept of the social media news release began when a journalist wrote on his blog on his hatred for the traditional press release with too much spin and backslapping quotes. His blog post, titled "Die Press Release, Die, Die, Die," was a request of the PR industry to present their news in a more factual manner, and that's something we at Web PR are focusing our attention on. Web PR's approach to the social media news release is inspired by the template designed by Shift Communications in the United States. This template was released into the blogosphere to encourage usage among the PR community, and Web PR wholeheartedly embraced this innovation. The inclusion of exciting multimedia content can really improve the impact that a social media news release can achieve. We partnered with Big Button because they share our enthusiasm for this medium and want to create the quality of creating content that our clients are looking for.
Nowadays, people are increasingly busy and they really have limited time to read lots and lots of printed information. The beauty of video is that it delivers a very effective message in a very engaging way. People are used to watching television, they're used to watching video now on sites such as YouTube. It really is a growing medium. And to incorporate that into an online PR campaign makes that very powerful. Video is an incredibly rich medium and is very effective at disseminating complex messages. In fact, a recent survey concluded that 3 out of 4 journalists are much happier receiving multimedia content than the written word alone. I think that gives an indication as to how the online PR market is moving, and we're really excited to be working with Web PR in this way.
The Web PR social media news release service. This was our core offering, but
Okay. Yeah, anyways, that last part was a sales pitch. We don't need to watch that. Okay, so does anybody have questions so far with where we're at on this? Anything? I still have some more to go, but are there any questions for right now where we're at? Bueller? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just, how does that function? So does those PR releases that are social media related, are they going to Facebook, like Facebook Word, how are they, is it going to the same people at the newspaper, or we're talking about expanded audience?
Yeah, one of the things that the last time I did this presentation, a lot of people were like, well, do people expect to be getting their news in this format, or do they expect to be getting it in kind of that old school format? One of the things that's really nice in my office, but I think might be the case with a lot of people, is that, it depends kind of in your market. Some people are in a smaller place, some people are in a larger place, but a lot of offices know the person that their press releases are going to, if it's especially kind of just they're expecting them to take it and probably repost it without much changing of it. You probably have an actual relationship with that person. So ask them, say, hey, I kind of want to try this new thing that we're going to do, and work with them on that. Because it's been the same thing with my writers, is I went to them, because I'm a web person, I've never talked to a journalist from any newspaper for any reason. But what I did was I started, again, working with the writers, and I said, hey, how often do you guys talk to journalists? You deal with these people kind of on a daily basis, and you just kind of work that relationship with them if they're accessible for you to talk to. Yeah.
Actually, I'm confused by that as well, because you were saying the target of this is actually bloggers, and I know a lot of reporters that aren't blogging all day long. So our PR department sends out media releases via email.
Okay.
So now instead of using email, they would be
posting
this onto a...
Do you not have any kind of an actual website, news?
We have a media relations website, and
right.
So it's actually... people have to come to it, so I can understand if it had an RSA,
okay.
And then maybe if the reporters obviously have that.
Well, and that's one of the terms that a lot of, and I've been talking to a lot of different writers in my university because I was trying to figure this out. How are these people that you talk to, how are they getting it? Is it an email? And one of the things that a lot of the reporters, the people that I know have been talking to, they say, quit emailing me all the time. Just give me your RSS feed, and I'll take that and I'll work through that. Because with a feed reader, it's kind of nice. And not to get totally off topic, but I'll give you kind of a demo of a feed reader. Assuming it loads. So this is like a feed reader that I use, and I happen to follow like the local newspaper where I live, among many other news sources. But like I follow it right there, and so rather than me having to go to that site, you know, every single morning or whatnot, that site comes to me and tells me when it's posted something new, which I would think would be, you know, I'm sure journalists have probably got loads and loads and loads of emails, so if they can do something to kind of offload some of that, and they can actively when they want to, rather than having it just pushed right at them. And again, you might know the journalists, and maybe they do want email, and that's probably the best way to hit them with that. But for me, I'll show you kind of an example that I'm using for this. Okay, so we've got this news site here, and this is where, you know, we still send out some of our press release type stuff directly to journalists, but also most of our journalists, we just send them an RSS feed. And what we've done, like I showed you, our initial site was just a long site with every single news article just showed up on the site. And so what I did was I was like, you know, some people could care less what's going on with students, but they're really interested in the research your school is doing. So I broke it up so they could go directly to just the research stuff. Now there's also an RSS feeds, you know, set up specifically with, you know, this section, so they can go directly to it and just get that information. If maybe your journalist is, you know, works for a research journal, they don't necessarily care about, again, like the students or something like that. So it's a nice way of being able to get this information to them.
Show how the feed works.
Sorry, what was that?
Show how the feed works.
Feed? Yeah, no problem.
Show
Oh, where are we at? Alright, so we got a subscribe tab here, and what I've got is, we've got RSS feeds for pretty much every section here on the site. And what I've done is run them through FeedBurner, so for some people, they just really want it really easy, maybe embedded in their site, because they're doing some kind of aggregation or something, and they can do that. So I've got every article, every, category here with an RSS feed. So I've got our general, this is getting everything feed. There's the faculty feed, the research feed, so on and so forth for all of our feeds. So what I'm going to do is, I only care about faculty stuff, so I'm going to subscribe to that. And so this is FeedBurner. A lot of these, it's just going to take you, you're going to get a little, like, you'll need to copy the link and bring it into the FeedBurner, feed reader. If you're interested in trying this out, feed readers are very, very helpful for kind of the consumption of RSS, and it might be something like you haven't learned a lot about before. I do have a link to a site that I don't have on me right now, but you can pretty much like Google feed readers. There's a couple that are good ones. There's Google Reader is a really, really helpful one. I know a lot of people use that. I personally don't like that one. I use Bloglines, but I'm not pushing for either one. There's also like NetNewsWire. Some people might use Net5s, which is a little bit different. It's more of like a start page rather than just a long like list of them. But again, this in nature, this is kind of what most of them look like. So did I actually subscribe to that one? Where did I do that? Oh, sorry, I'll go back to this. So I'm going to click subscribe with Bloglines here. And so it's taking me to my Bloglines and it's saying the name of it. This is the engineering faculty because that's what I'm wanting to subscribe to. So I'm going to hit subscribe. Oh, where's that? So I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to hit subscribe. And it's going to say, what is the feed URL? I'm going to hit subscribe. And I have to hit subscribe again. So down here at the bottom, it'll usually pick up like 10, 20 or so of the most recent ones. So I can go through here. And again, what this is doing is, for me, I used to be subscribed to like about 1,000 blogs. I cut that down drastically to more like 300 or 500, which still sounds like a lot. You'll be like, how do you get through, like, how do you actually do work if you're just reading that stuff all day long? But instead of having, if I went and visited 500 sites every single day, I would not get anything done during the day. But instead, I've kind of turned the tables on how I'm digesting my information. They're telling me when there's something new, so I don't have to go there and see if it's new. So these are the kind of newest things that are showing up, and they've got little quick keys so you can go through it real fast. Like I can just hit J. And again, this goes back to that. You saw how quick I was scanning. So that idea of putting, bullets, when I said a lot of people just put 3 to 4 bullets in the top of their thing, and I don't have this full social media press release format, so I'm not the great example, but I said, again, we're in adolescence, so we're still working on this. But what we're kind of looking for is that, the nature of people reading on the internet is they scan, and especially with feed readers, I mean, you breeze through. So I'll pretty much take like 2 seconds to read the title of this, and if I'm not interested, I'll just keep going. So I'll just breeze through these articles, and then I say, oh, it's one about Professor Sustrup. He's the guy that created C++ as a professor at A&M. I'm like, oh, cool, this article's great. I'm really interested in this, and I want to read it. So I can open it. It'll take me directly to the article. But again, I don't have to waste all the time going to websites all the time because they're in RSS. And this is the way that you can work with your journalists. What we've done, and I'm not a big print guy personally, but what we did as a way to work with them is we made up this little, when we kind of switched a lot of our RSS feeds around and stuff, is we created a postcard to send to journalists. And all the postcard says, hey, we've changed our RSS feeds, we've launched a new news site, and we say, go to our site /subscribe, and that'll get you to the RSS feeds for whatever section you want. And it kind of broke down a little bit about the new features of the site and things that they would want to highlight and look for when they're trying to work with us in the future. And then like an email contact, if for some reason that's not the way that person works, we can still do. We also have a weekly, it's Aggie Engineering Weekly. It pretty much takes all the news that we're already outputting and just puts it in a newsletter format once a week. So again, I'm not saying this is your only medium doing this stuff. We're still hitting also, we have an email newsletter that for those people that are more comfortable with digesting their stuff that way. I recommend it. Sorry.
Can you talk about the benefits of using that feed burner that you showed us, and do you need it for RSS?
No, you don't need to. I mean, you can just use it, I'll call it naked RSS. You can just use a straight up RSS feed, and that's perfectly fine to use. With this term RSS, is there anybody that go over your head? I just want to, don't feel bad, raise your hand, and I will explain it. Okay, so FeedBurner is pretty much a tool, and when you go to it, you'll put in your RSS feed, and it kind of transforms it into a little bit easier to subscribe to format. Also, you can get stats. You could technically kind of do stats with probably a log-based analyzer. Google Analytics, no, I guess you could, but it really gives you a lot better idea of who's reading your stuff, and you can go into the stats. One of the things that's, excuse me, I lost my track of thought. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. Yep, I give up. I don't know. Anyways, FeedBurner is a really, really nice tool though, because you can keep stats with what you're doing, and I don't know if I give up. I can't think of what I'm trying to say right now, Kyle.
Why would you ever not want to have FeedBurner on a kind of publicized feed? Why would you ever not want to use FeedBurner? To me, it's kind of like the de facto, always push all my feeds through FeedBurner.
I do. I always run everything that I do through FeedBurner because, if you don't do FeedBurner, it's really hard to get much of an idea of who's subscribing to your blog and how many numbers you have. Also, when you have FeedBurner, you can kind of break down. It'll tell how many people are coming in through log lines, how many people are coming in through Google Reader. Also with FeedBurner, you can do this thing where through their interface you can subscribe via email to your site. So you kind of get an idea of, sort of like you do with Google Analytics, it breaks down kind of like not the browsers, but it breaks down what readers you're coming from, or if maybe you've embedded the feed on the site, you'll get an idea of who did that. Because, with your RSS feed, they have this little widget-y thing, which is just a little clip of code that you can embed in your site, and you can know who did that. So it gives you a little bit better indicators. RSS feeds, again, I'll just call it a naked RSS feed. It's really hard to get an idea of who's doing what with it, and FeedBurner is a great tool to do that. So I recommend it. Yeah. Any others? No? Okay. I'll just keep going for now, and if you have any others, feel free to interrupt me. So there are kind of lots of places out there, and I'm getting just for now a couple of higher ed examples. One of the sites that I loved when I was looking around for great examples in higher ed is the University of Missouri. They have a site called Mizzou Wire. And, they didn't do that whole, like, social media press release format, which is why I keep, saying don't get so caught up on the format of that template. It's just ideas of how you can use multimedia in your press releases. And some people say, well, why do we even need to use multimedia in a press release? And the thing that I think is so cool about using different mediums is, again, my example of the thing with the dragon, it's not all that exciting to have someone say there was a fire-breathing dragon, that did this thing. If you saw it in a video or you saw a picture of a huge flame coming out, it's kind of that idea of a picture is worth 1,000 words. Something might not be best communicated in a video. It might be very, very bland to watch a professor doing some repetitive task or something like that. But some things really, really lend themselves to things other than just, like this one is pretty cool. It's these Japanese drummers came to the University of Missouri campus. So, I don't know if you've seen these before. They're really big and animated, and they're all over the place, and it's pretty exciting. And so, they even met that on their site. If you were trying to capture that in just words, it doesn't do that much for you. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. Yeah, go ahead.
So, if you put like an image on there, you put the press ready image so that journalists can just grab it and use it right away, or?
A lot of people do different things. What we've got is with WordPress, you can, if you want to, use a really large image, and then it lets you select what size you want to put in with it. So you can do like a, let's say a fairly small thumbnailish or smallish sized image, and then when they click on it, it gives them, a huge image. So if they need kind of like a high res for print or whatever it is they're looking to do, they can get that real quick. We try to make our PR and media person really, really accessible. So if they need to get to us, they can get to us. But again, with so many of these things, it's just making that one next step a little bit easier, adding the comments, because it doesn't make them have to go search for an email. Everything that you can make easier for a person makes them more apt to do that affirmative next step. Even when we're talking about like email campaigns, whatever you can make easier, do it for them, and it'll end up better for you in the long run. Any other questions? Yeah.
Maybe can you just step back for me? Is the audience here the news reporter, or is the audience here the public? Are you bypassing the media?
I think it's all of them. There's a million different ways that people can get to your website. There's a million different people that are on your website. And it's not like every time they come to your site, they're going to self-identify. If someone has an RSS feed, a lot of people might never really see what your site looks like. You could have redesigned your site, months ago, but I technically consume your site via RSS. You might not see it. And I think that, especially depending on what type of an institution you are, everyone's your audience. That's one of the things, what's his name? The guy who Don't Make Me Think, Steve Crew. Yeah, the thing that's so hard about higher ed, higher ed is really some of the hardest websites to do. Because, in a business, it's like you have that niche. You have, if you're, Ford, your audience is somebody who wants to buy an American car. In a higher ed institution, your audience is former students, prospective students, staff, student, alumni, like whatever the different, and just public in general, because that's probably who you serve. Your local community. If you're an international institution, it's everybody in the whole world. So your audience is very big, but also at the same time, you want to get PR and stuff like that. So journalists are also your audience because you want to further, your exposure, which is the whole idea of why you're doing press releases most of the time. And I think if you're able, what we've done for most of ours is we've put the videos up on YouTube because I don't want to do the time or effort to put my video. I'm into that. I'm really a proponent of social media sites and stuff like that, so I put my videos up on YouTube because that's, again, another medium where they might get a lot of exposure. One of the videos that was really cool that people from our school did was, I don't know if most of you know the game Guitar Hero. There were these students in my school, and I work in an engineering college, And there were these students that made this robot that would play Guitar Hero and ace it on expert level. They called it Slashbot. If you go on YouTube and put in Slashbot, you'll find these videos. I didn't produce these videos, but I've used these as part of my marketing. When I'm marketing on Facebook or I'm going on different parts of my site, I'll embed these videos. If you put your video out there and someone embeds it, in some random place and maybe it catches on, it's always more marketing. You can push it back to you because in the end, one of the sells of an institution is getting more people in your seat. Regardless of how they come to you, it's getting more people to check you out and know about you. So I think everybody's your audience, unfortunately, in higher ed. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I think what a lot of people are dealing with is listening to all this really cool stuff and thinking, how in heck am I going to get this done given my current resources? So my question is, how difficult is it to implement something like this? What's the idea of the man hours, and is it even, so I can see if it's even doable for us?
Okay, first of all, I guess I'll talk about the platform. The platform that I use is WordPress. It's kind of famous for what they call the 5-minute install. So you've already got your platform set up. You probably need to find a theme, do a little bit of tweaking, but more than likely you've got some web person that can probably figure it out. So that's your platform that you're going to use, or it can be movable type, or really you can build your own CMS, whatever you want it to be. But that's your platform. Then you've got your writers who are already creating press releases, and all you're really asking them to do is optimize the press release, or just change it up a little bit, and it might take a little bit of convincing, but again, I can nag people, and I'm kind of hard-headed, and I won that battle after a while. So then what you're saying is you need this extra content. Photos, most people are already doing photos in some extent for a lot of their big events, so we'll already say that we have that covered. Audio is, let's say, this one, my projector went down. This site right here, what they did is, these are called sound slides. They're really great if you can't get video, but you have audio and you have pictures. So these are what are called sound slides. And what you can do is you pretty much have an MP3 that's associated with a bunch of pictures, and you can set them up timeline-wise, and it's got the nice Ken Burns effect with the zoom out and all that. But it's a really easy way of, maybe you don't have any way of doing video. You can't afford a camera right now, you don't have a videographer type thing. Again, I believe it's soundslides.com, a nice way of doing it. That looks really nice and polished. And again, it's you got to do what you can do. You might. This might be too much for you. You might be able to just get something like Slideshow Pro and create like little galleries. Whatever you can do, try it. As far as doing video, one of the things that's been really cool recently with the invention of YouTube is not every video that you make about your institution or that somebody else makes about your institution needs to be like a polished Steven Spielberg production. You can make videos that really look pretty crappy, but they get your point across. And there's even video cameras now, like there's flip video cameras, there's Kodak video cameras that are really, really small. And could one of you guys lift up one of your flip cameras? I know like 5 of you have them, so. Okay, there's probably like 6 people over here with these cameras. So you can see how small that camera is. Those cameras cost like $120. So we're not saying you need to get HD, like, a couple $1,000 camera. These are little cheap cameras. And they get the point across. If you have, some people might have like a creative services group or something like that on your office. And maybe you can work something out with them that they'll actually do some great video for you. The higher production you can get, great. But if not, that's a $125 camera, and I think that any school can at least find $125 for you. With that, you might need a little, like an editing suite. There can be the basic, like iMovie thing, or Windows Movie Maker. Those come on your computer, those are free. So, there's not that much of investment of time. You just start small. We really, like I said, we don't have that much multimedia on it yet. I was just trying to change, in general, the way that we looked at news, not just a big long list, but kind of change the way that we looked at it. So this is, even for me, my site is really not the best example of this, which is why I'm showing other people's sites. Another great one is, I think it's Boston University. It's BU Today. I don't know the URL. Does anyone know the URL for that off the top of their head? It's like butoday.com, I believe, but I could be wrong. Theirs is really great as another example to look at for a really good higher ed news site. And also there's like CNN is great. I mean, election coverage on CNN, I was just going crazy looking at the stuff that they've really done and changed their platform, as well as New York Times is another great one that I'd recommend looking at. Any other questions right now? No? Okay. So again, I'm going to show you a couple of these that follow a little bit more just that traditional format of what they were pitching and template type thing, but again, don't get too caught up in this. So what kind of, if you're going for the actual social media press release and not just, I'll call it a press release with multimedia on it. What most of them have is they have usually some kind of like video. So video is right here. Pictures are right here. They've got, I know a lot of news sites by nowadays, you're seeing all these little goofy things that say tag this, save this, share this, add this, whatever the word is. They're trying to encourage you to link to it on other places, whether it's a delicious or a dig, you'll see dig this on a lot of stuff, or share it on Facebook. And, it's again, you gotta, especially, I was talking about, I post my videos on YouTube. You never know what format of what you put out there is going to get popular. And my take on it is the more places you can get it out there, the better. Because, again, with that like Slashbot example, I didn't create that. I didn't create those videos, but they're getting like hundreds of thousands to millions of hits. And in their video it says these are students at Texas A&M College of Engineering. So it's got that kind of hit. It reflects on us. And in general, one of the overarching themes that people have been talking about is that your web presence is everything said about you on the web, whether or not you actually say it. So I try and take that kind of global look about what's out there. I'll use things like if somebody creates a video of some event that I wasn't able to attend, I'll use their video. If they've got it out there on YouTube, it has an embed code, and I can just take it and stick it right in there. One of the other projects that I was kind of working on for a while, but again, I unfortunately don't work in the offices that deal directly with students. I started kind of a student blogging project, video blogging project. So again, I bought a ridiculous amount of those little flip video cameras and gave them out to students. And what we did was a study abroad program. And it was really cool for a little bit. And then, they're in Singapore. And I don't really have any great direct contact with them. But that kind of went on for a little bit there. But anyways, any other questions? Okay. So, this one follows a little bit more the actual template and format that a social media press release is kind of associated with being. So they've got, the logo of the company, they've got a headline for it, they've got the contact information right up here at the top, and then they go into these quick little bullets, and it gives you the meat of the story from the very beginning of it. And I know somebody was asking a question back there about what they do with images. So right here, they've got the main images that sort of be associated with the story, and these are high-res versions, so you can download them in whatever format you need to use them. You can take them with you. And then they'll pull some of the kind of main quotes, and then usually down at the bottom towards it, they do throw in some of the format that you're already doing with press releases. There's paragraphs, but they throw it down to the very, very bottom, so that for someone that, when you're writing, especially, writing for the web is something that some people have a really, really hard time doing. But you should always, make every message that you put out about your organization appropriate for the medium that it is. And if it's on the web, people read headlines, they read bullets, they read bold, stuff like that, and they skim and go through things really fast. And again, here's another one of those little areas where it's got all the little tags, the social bookmarking tags and stuff down right there. Any questions currently? I'm kind of losing steam here, so come on, let's ask some questions.
I'll throw one out there.
Yeah.
I read something that said, social media press releases are bad because you're encouraging, if you put it out on 10 different sites. Am I getting a mic here?
Yeah, keep talking.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay.
Basically, and just throwing a question out there, I was reading something that said social media press releases can be bad because if you're putting it out there on 10 different sites, that's 10 different platforms that you can allow comments on. And rather than having a central place where everyone's commenting and having a genuine or good discussion, you might have one comment in different places. So,
well, and I think that's the nature of almost everything we do on the web nowadays. You know, there's sites that take, pull, push all over the place, and unfortunately, discussions have become very kind of disjointed about different things. And even in the mediums that maybe you're not using them, if somebody else takes your RSS feed, they can put it wherever they want to put it also. So yeah, it's a little bit more to keep up on. And I did a webinar last week about monitoring. It was called Monitoring 360, and it talked about you know, there's all this stuff said all over the internet, and it is a real struggle to keep on top of it. And I think that, again, I don't know that I'm into the 100% following that little template, that last example that I showed, doing press releases, but I think, you know, call it kind of an enhanced press release. Right now, we're working on we've got a yearly, like, magazine type thing that we're doing, and what I'm doing is the people, our graphic designers design, you know, a magazine, obviously. And so what I said I wanted to do is I really don't care as much about the stories, but I want to do kind of like when you used to buy CDs and they'd be the enhanced version, where when you put it in on your computer, you can get video and you can get all that stuff. That's what I'm looking at our magazine being this year, is kind of the enhanced version with video and pictures, and add something to the story rather than, again, just posting the same text that was on in the actual printed version of our magazine. Anything else?
You mentioned that it's kind of hard to write for the web. My question would be, what would you recommend are some good, maybe best practices for how people could sort of break through the stuffy official writing and make it more blog friendly? Okay.
Another from the guy that made Don't Make Me Think, Steve Krug, his example of how to work with web content that you get from most writers is take what you got, take half of that, and then divide that by 2. So pretty much it's saying, you know, the way that people write, a lot of times, and this infuriates me that my boss or someone in my office will create some kind of a print piece, and then they'll literally just send me the PDF, and they'll also do the usual, put this on the web, which okay. So anyways, but then they say, okay, create a website from this content. And I'm like, seriously, you want me to create a brochure on the web? I mean, this is that thinking about your content appropriately for the medium that you're on. You know, another thing to think about more in the future is mobile. You know, okay, so I've got an iPhone here. You're going to tell me that I'm going to read like a 13-page document on this phone? Probably not. That would be a little bit annoying. You know, I'd probably be cross-eyed by the time I was done. So you always need to think appropriate for the medium that you're working on. You know, when even between just a regular website and a mobile website, when you're talking on a website and, you know, let's say you've got a listing of like a phone number. A phone number on a website is something different than a phone number on a mobile device. When I see a phone number on a mobile device, I want to be able to click that and turn it directly into a phone call. There's a way to actually link like you would a hyperlink on a website. You can make it pretty much a phone call link in a mobile website. But you always need to think about making your content appropriate for whatever medium, whether it's print, web, mobile, whatever goofy devices we're going to get in the future. I think that's probably some of the best advice. I mean, there are lots of classes out there that teach, and I'm absolutely not a good writer, so I don't want to be held to any standards on this, but there's classes out there to teach people how to write for the web. But again, what I kept reiterating is that web is all about fast, quick. I mean, look at yourself. I assume most of you, when you're trying to find, you know, on like CNN, when I go to their site, there's, you know, they've just got lists and lists of headlines, so I just kind of, where are we at? You know, when I go to CNN, I just cruise the headlines. This is the way that I'm going through. I'm like, okay, Obama, Democrat, Obama youth. Okay, cool, I want to read that. That's how I made my decision. When I was in the feed reader earlier, you saw how fast I was going through them. So the faster that you can grab the attention, I mean, the average, you know, web page, the idea is that you have about 5 seconds to grab that person's attention. And not much more than that. If you're not doing something that, you know, reaches out and grabs them, they're not going to spend more time on your site. Anything else? All right, I got one last video I'm going to show.
Oh, hey, your company has capabilities, but now that you're here, there's something I want to talk to you about. One second. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, I want to talk to you about... No, really not. An NSR is a multimedia news release. But what's a multimedia news release? Well, every day, PR Newsletter sends out hundreds of press releases. They're all pretty much just straight up text, and there's nothing that fancy about it. But with an NR, we can add HTML coding, we can add hyperlinks, pictures, and even video. And this can all be in one press release, not separate links. Now the question is, are NRs really that much better than regular press releases? Well, take a look at this. Alright, now let's say that this guy right here is a regular press release. You know, pretty standard, gets the job done, and kind of weird. Oh, this guy! Now that's the one you still like this? What about this? Press release. Cat rolls over and plays a toy. Boring. Alright, so let's try that again. Press release. Cat rolls over. Oh, look at that! Look at where I go! Let me go! Oh, you're right. Oh. That's fine. Basically, the internet doesn't look like this anymore. It looks like this. And this. I mean, even news sites are multimedia extravaganza. Look, CNN.com has its own section just for videos. The internet's changing, and luckily, with multimedia news releases, we're changing right alongside with it. Alright, now that we know how great multimedia news releases are, the question is, what kind of releases can benefit from them? Well, let's say you have a new personnel announcement. Let's say the company is doing kind of charity or environmental. We're going to do things for people that are making a product announcement or product enhancement. It's not novel, it's not winning, it's not winning. Maybe your company is winning some kind of award. We accept this award on behalf of kittens ever, or perhaps you have a medical discovery that you just want everybody to know about. Guess what? We just cure everyone's team. The bottom line is the possibilities are pretty much endless. So I came up with this little phrase. If you want your this to go far,
with that, unless there's any other questions, that's pretty much it. If for any reason you need to get a hold of me, and these are a little bit edited slides from the ones that are on your flash drive, so if you would like to get them, I'll be posting them up on my blog. It's just my name, matt.herzberger.com. So you can feel free to go there, and I'll be writing a post in a little bit and put up the current version of the slides. I've got some contact information for myself. But otherwise, do we have any questions? Alrighty. Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
We're going to take a break until about 3:45-ish, which could be 3:48-ish, and then I think we're going to start on our CMS, our last